Hello and welcome to day 5 in the Whelping box. Here at Miyax we're going to do ENS again today. We're going to do another weigh-in just to make sure everything's going in the right direction. And while we do it, I'm going to talk a little bit about maternal care of your bitch, of your mother dog. So we'll start, my hands are a bit cold, but we'll start with Miss Pink here. And I'll just do the ENS while I talk, so we'll see how multi-talented I am, I suppose. So I'm going to do head up for 5 seconds, and head down for 5 seconds, and on her back for 5 seconds, and on this cold flannel for 5 seconds. Lovely. And then we're going to tickle her toes. I haven't bought my Q-tip, so I am going to do it with my finger, which is fine because we're just stimulating those neuroreceptors, and we'll weigh her in. Now I wanted to talk while I do this about maternal care and how we care for our bitch in pregnancy, and that's 460 grams in pregnancy and after whelping. So I'm going to really briefly talk about the part where your bitch is in season or in heat, because I think that really should be its own thing that we could discuss in its own episode, really, because it's quite a complicated thing getting it right, and I think wolf dogs can be quite different in some ways. Certainly lupine dogs can have their own quite unique things about being in heat that we'd need to discuss more thoroughly, I think. So we'll do that on another video, but I do want to run down the basics of that starting from the season, which would be that obviously when your bitch comes into heat, it's usually in the autumn, winter and spring months. Yes, there are some that cycle outside of that time, but quite few actually. The majority are winter and spring. She's 400 and, oh goodness, 450 grams. Oh, sorry, Danny. And I think that coming into heat, they generally ovulate a little bit later in their season or heat than your average dog. So a lot of textbooks will say that your dog should ovulate somewhere between sort of day 9 to 14, and that's not really the case in my experience with any lupine dog that I've owned, or wolf dog for that matter. It's always been later. Ovulation's always been later in the heat than that. So this is Mr. Grey. I haven't personally used it for a long time because I haven't used an outside stud dog for a long time. But if you are considering using an outside stud dog, or if your dog spends a lot of time in the company of other non-household dogs, it's often a good idea to use the herpes vaccine. And if you're going to do that, you have to vaccinate either when your bitch is in season, in heat, or within the first sort of 7 to 10 days of your mating. Okay, so that it's given in 2 vaccines, and the first part is given then. This young man is about 500 grams, 520 grams, Mr. Grey. And after your vet would have to do your herpes vaccine for you. I'm not sure about in the US whether that can be purchased in your chemists or over the counter. It can't in the EU and in the UK. It has to be delivered by a veterinarian. So when your bitch is in heat, you'd need to speak to your veterinarian about using the herpes vaccine if that was something that you needed to do or you felt was going to be the right thing to do. Your second vaccination for herpes would be given a week to 2 weeks before your estimated due date. So we usually would use that around day 50 to 56 to do that second vaccine for herpes. So moving along, you've mated your dog, your female, and I don't personally do anything different for the first 40 days or so. The only thing that would occur during that time is that sometime around from day 28, do a scan or see your veterinarian for palpation to see if they can feel anything. You can have blood tests, x-rays, various things done these days to confirm pregnancy. We just do ultrasound scanning here, and we've been doing it on day 30, day 33, day 35. We're actually going to do one this week that will probably be more like day 36, 37. But really in the 30s is a good time to ultrasound scan to be able to confirm pregnancy. And then we'd be looking at, after we've confirmed pregnancy, on day 42 gestation, we would be looking at starting a worming program. Panacure, pretty globally used actually in pregnancy for whelping bitches, because you can give, it comes in a paste or in a liquid, and you can give those from day 42 every single day to your bitch to clear any worm infestation that she could pass through the placenta to the puppies or through the milk when she's feeding. And you would give that every day, depending on the weight of your bitch. That's 470 grams. You give that every day depending on the weight of your bitch until 2 days postpartum, which is 2 days post your puppy's being delivered. And then you would pick up a normal worming schedule for your puppies, which would be every 2 weeks. And you would have do your bitch once a month then at that stage until she finishes breastfeeding. So yeah, that's all we've got to say about worming. If you've got any more in detail questions about that, then obviously you can ask me in the comments. We'll move on to Miss Teal. The final thing I wanted to talk about while I'm doing this for your maternal care is the change of diet, and when to change diet and how much to change and what sort of things you're looking for. So what I do is I don't change my diet until I start my worming schedule on day 42. Now, some people might want to start a little bit sooner than that, particularly if they found out on an earlier scan that they're having a large litter, or if their bitch shouldn't be bred anyway if it wasn't in tip-top condition. But I suppose if you feel that your bitch is needing a bit more earlier on. But I don't start increasing feed until day 42. 470 grams for Miss Teal there. And what I do is I increase initially from day 42, when I start my worming schedule, is I increase the food intake by 30%. So they have basically an extra third every day of the food regime that they're currently on, because we feed a mixture. We feed raw every day and we feed kibble every day. And sometimes we feed those two things together, and sometimes we feed them apart, but they have one meal of kibble and one meal of raw. And with my pregnant bitch from day 42, I would feed 2 meals a day, one of kibble and one of raw, and I would increase both of those meals by 30% in the early days. I do think the use of a good high quality kibble, because I'm not a massive kibble fan, but the use of a good high quality kibble, it's Mr. Blue, he's very vocal every time. The use of a good high quality kibble, particularly in pregnant bitches, is invaluable really. I do think that when you're feeding just exclusively raw, unless you are buying the completes from a really well-known supplier, you do risk not hitting all the vitamins and minerals that you should be providing to your pregnant bitch. Oh, Mr. Blue, you've always got such strong opinions. So I particularly like to use a high quality kibble at that time as an addition to the raw feed. And like I say, I increase it by 30%. Right, 550 grams, maybe. Difficult because he's, yeah, 550 I'd say. Actually, you feel heavier than that, I've got to be honest. He feels heavier than that. Now, as the pregnancy moves on, from there, every week, I would increase that amount from 30%, oh right, from 30%, oh my goodness, from 30% all the way up to an extra 50%, slowly increasing the amount that I give my bitch sort of every day from day 42 right up until the whelp, which can be anywhere from day 59 to 65, but in a wonderful ideal world it's on day 63 if you're really good at your dates. But I would increase it to an extra 50% by the time the puppies were actually arriving. But you obviously then can't feed her 2 big meals a day because they're running out of space in their abdomen. Should we do yellow? I haven't done yellow, have I? So that then becomes 3 meals a day, and towards the end it becomes 4 meals a day. And I've even had friends that have had bitches that have had to have 6 meals a day because they're so full, their belly's so full. This is pink. We've definitely done pink. I thought that looked yellow and it's not. Where are you, yellow? I don't know what I was saying. We lost the yellow. Well, Mrs. Yellow. She was hiding under her brothers. So yeah, by the time the puppies are born, the bitch is eating basically an extra 50% of what she would normally be eating every day. It's divided into, for us, 3 to 4 meals, and like I say, I have friends and colleagues that have had to divide that into 6 meals because their bitches have either had a very large litter or they're very large when carrying, and therefore they're not able to eat those big meals all in one go. So they've had to divide it down even further. And that continues at that extra 50%. I would continue that, she says, I'm getting off of there. I would continue that right up until your bitch begins to wean your puppies, or you begin to wean your puppies, but ideally those two things would be coinciding with each other. Because she, depending on the size of the litter, okay, you're 460 grams. Miss Yellow's 460. She is going to be consuming and producing huge amounts of milk, needing lots and lots of calories to produce that milk, and obviously milk of quality has a lot of calories in it too. So by now, this is day 5. I think we've only got Mr. Black left to do. By now, on day 5, for example, to give you some idea of how this works, Faye is now on 100% extra. So she was on 50% extra when they were born, and since then, in the last 5 days, that's gone up even more. She's now on 100% more than she was having before she was mated, for her normal healthy weight. So she is now having 3 large meals a day. She is consuming somewhere in the region of 2 to 2.5 kilograms of raw food a day, and she is consuming about 800 grams to 1,000 grams of kibble, high quality kibble as well. That is, we use Exie Valley. It's a grain free, high protein, lots of veggies and minerals and fancy stuff. But a high quality kibble that she's also eating nearly 1 kilo of that a day as well. So, 560, and when he wriggles it's a bit more. So we'll just go with 560 there on Mr. Black. But she's now consuming, so that's double effectively. She was eating, before the pregnancy, she would have somewhere up to about 1 kilo of raw a day. It's between 750 grams and 1 kilo of raw, and a bit of kibble, a handful of kibble, and we have more than doubled that really, because she's on 2 kilos plus of raw a day, plus she's on nearly a kilo of kibble a day, and snacks, because she works so hard. She deserves all the snacks. So today she's had some chicken necks and some dried duck strips and anything really. She needs to eat, consume loads of calories. Now, I'll just get puppies out to show you while I finish talking, I suppose. Shall we see if Mr. Blue's any quieter than he was earlier? He's always got really strong opinions. Here he is. I know. The character that is. Finally, I wanted to talk about calcium in your bitch's diet, and when to give it and when not to, basically. So when your bitch is in labour, in active labour, extra calcium is a good idea. Extra calories and extra calcium help the bitch to have a good, easy whelp. Okay, they provide her energy, and they also help her with her contractions, and we'll go into that actually as well in much more detail. We'll talk about the whelp itself in a lot more detail in another video, but definitely having calcium supplements, or he's trying to eat me, I think. Having things like mother's pudding, which recipes can be found online. It's basically a custard base, it's a dairy based product. Yogurt, ice cream, things that are high in calories, high in calcium, high in fat. I know, but you can't eat me because I don't have anything to feed you, any milk. Okay. Is a really good idea during the whelp, and it can be a good idea for the first couple of days to a week after your bitch has whelped. But beyond that, it probably hasn't really got any value. I mean, sure, if your bitch really likes it, you can carry on with mother's pudding. And I do know that colleagues and friends who've had bitches that haven't produced as much milk as they would like, it can help with milk production as well. So they continue to feed mother's pudding postpartum for a few days and up to a couple of weeks afterwards. Personally, I only give calcium during the whelp itself, and then we revert to normal type diet post whelp, just in extra volume, just in more volume, because I haven't had any bitches that have had any problems producing milk. They've always produced loads of milk, and I haven't had any bitches that really have any problems whelping either, so I've been like super lucky and should touch wood. But I do know that it's quite useful during the whelp, and they certainly have it in the form of, we do mother's pudding, which is a custard base, and I know a friend of mine does ice cream, and that's all fine, but we don't use it after the birth, and some people do continue to give calcium supplements after the birth to help with milk production in the early days. I personally find that with my dogs, they don't need it after the birth, where they're on crazy high quality food anyway, and they're on raw food too, which obviously has bone calcium in that too, as long as the high quality kibble that has plenty. If you want me to break that down anymore, then obviously put that in the comments. I realised it was a bit disjointed because we've been weighing puppies and doing the NS at the same time, but we will be making a video about the heat, the season of the bitch, and how that progresses, how to spot it, what to do, when to mate, all the different options that are out there available to you through your veterinarian and through blood testing that can help along with that process, and what to do in the initial period after the mating until the season goes away. And I will be doing a separate video about whelping. In fact, we will hopefully have another litter later in the spring where I will talk about the whelp in detail itself and what I'm doing during that whelp, what I'm doing for the puppies, and importantly what I'm doing for the dam, what I'm doing for the mother. So I'll go into that in a lot more detail. But to summarise, If you're using the herpes vaccine, your first one needs to be during the heat or within a week of your mating. Your second one should be a week to 2 weeks before your bitch is due to give birth. You should be increasing food from around day 42 by 30%. You should also start worming at that time, a daily worming schedule for your bitch from day 42 until 2 days postpartum, so 2 days after your puppies arrive. Originally increase food by 30% at day 42, and by the time you get to day 63, which is ideally when you'll be expecting to see your new puppies, you should be on at least 50% more. And post the birth, so postpartum, 100% more. And it could even increase with a litter this size, a litter of 8. I could end up feeding Faye, the mother of theirs, up to 3 times the amount she would normally eat. So she's currently on double what she would normally have. She could be going up to 3, potentially even 4 times what she eats, because these guys are hungry. They eat a lot, and Faye produces loads of milk. And like I say, your worming schedule would end 2 days after, and you would pick up with a routine worming schedule for giving. I would do my bitch every month, and then when the puppies leave, I would go back to the normal 3-month schedule. And I worm my puppies every 2 weeks. Now, you might want to also worm your dam every 2 weeks if she's feeding for a longer period of time. My bitches tend to, be honest with you, stop feeding around day 19. After that, they get very brief snacks at the milk bar. So I'll probably worm Faye when I worm these guys at 2 weeks old, and then she'll drop onto the normal schedule because she won't be feeding them very much after day 24. She probably won't be feeding them any substance at all after that, because they will be on food by that point. You'll see that these guys will wean pretty early. That's it. I'll see you for the next video.